Halifax Elementary School Committee meeting. The first item on our agenda is to acknowledge and schedule any visitors. Seeing no audience members at all, I will move on. 2015-2016 budget discussion. Would you like to discuss it, or would you like me to turn it over to the business manager?
I'll make some comments and then we'll together work our way through it. So Mrs. Hanson had been at a finance committee meeting, and as a result of that meeting, we had a target to come to a budget increase of 2.5% for what we might call the regular day budget, which is everything except for out-of-district vocational and out-of-district sped and the transportation that goes with those costs. And so we went back and looked at the budget and said, what changes can we make that will allow us to keep the programs that we have, fill the needs that we have for students, and still live within that. Recognizing that at the last meeting, I believe Mrs. Blackwood talked about a change in the Quality Full Day Grant program that we've been involved in. So the Quality Full Day K program is paid for the equivalent of 2 FTEs, 2 full-time equivalent aides that have been in the kindergarten program. We actually do it with 4 part-time people, but they add up to 2 full-time people. That grant is not, may come back, but we have no reason to believe it will, and have no knowledge that it's going to happen. And so we have already asked the building to schedule around the loss of those 2 aides. So they're not in this budget. We assume that they're not coming back, and we'll have to schedule around some people. Mrs. Healy updated the shared cost budget by $12,000 because we actually voted a budget last month. It's had a joint meeting.
This month.
I guess it is this month. A couple of days it'll be next month. I'm already into April, excuse me. And then utility updates. Christine has updated essentially the gas portion, the heating portion from the budget. It's a lot more like the previous year, not the previous year's actual, not the current year's budget. And Christine can address that if you have any questions. Then we went through, those are the additions to the budget. There were some reductions to the budget that we made. Teaching supplies, we're taking $5,000 out of teaching supplies. That's the standard everyday kinds of things that you see in classrooms. It gets us down. It's not an increase. It's closer to what we actually spent last year. There were some textbooks. Now, you know we've talked about updating the science curriculum. This really says we're going to do the science curriculum update over 2 years, not over 1 year. I will tell you that it's not unlike what we're doing in the other districts for the same reason. Money is tight. So we will be making that change. We propose to make that change. But I think we talked about this before. We'll actually be doing the upper grades first instead of the lower grades, because the upper grades come to a competency test that they need to take in the 10th grade for graduation, and they're tested in the 8th grade for science. We've made some minor changes to software, $2,900. Some things that we can do without, some minor adjustments. Library books, we're back down to level funding into this year, taking $1,575 out. One of the bigger changes is the media tech. You know, we've talked about sharing a position with the town. Whether that's going to be funded or not seems to be a little uncertain. And so we're proposing that we go back to what we have had up until now. It's not ideal, but it is certainly going to be get us through the year. It includes about $4,500 that we would use for casual labor, is the best way to put it. People to help us at the end of the year dismantle all the computers, do a quick clean and update, and then put them back in place so we're ready to open school. Again, as I said, we've already eliminated 2 aides in the building. We're looking to make deeper cuts. Health supplies, about $1,500, a few less Band-Aids, I guess is the way to put it. Custodial supplies of $1,000. Sped out-of-district tuition is being reduced by $66,000. It's sort of a combination of some changes in placements, but mostly going to 65% as the reimbursement rate for circuit breaker. We feel pretty comfortable with 65%. So overall, that is a reduction of $81,234 from the regular day budget. And yes, we have picked up another vocational student line, as I described. It's not part of that 2.5% target, but that increase, having said that, we're still seeing a 13% decrease in vocational over the current year. We still could get some applications tossed over to transit for the first, April 1st, but I think it's unlikely, but always possible. So those were the adjustments, and if you look at your budget, you can see that the regular day budget now is up an increase of 1.78%. The special education budget for in-school is up a total of 7.5%. That is mostly due to contracted services, really testing that we're doing now, that used to previously be covered through a grant. The grant just is unable to keep up with the demands. And overall, that gets us to 2.48%.
Can we go ahead and subtract the 33,000 from the 81 and come out with the 48 change? That's the actual cut in the budget.
No, this is the addition of this is not a minus, this is the plus of the.
I know, but I subtracted that from the 81 for an actual cut of 48,000.
Well, it's certainly one way of looking at it. Having said that, what the town is looking for is what is the increase year over year for what's called total without out-of-district sped education.
Yeah.
So that's the increase that they're talking about.
What happens if the town votes for the immediate person? Like, we just took it out of the budget, so.
Well, I think.
Are we saying, in a sense, that we're not interested in sharing that position with them? I'm just trying to be clear
sure.
what that means.
Well, what we're saying is that it does not rise to a priority over the other staff in the building.
Right.
So if the town felt it was in a position to fund that position for us, add it to the budget, we'd be very thankful and say, sure, we can use that person. But if the town is saying, gee, we need you to find $15,000 to take out of your budget so you can have this, it's administration view that that's not the highest priority we have for money. And having already taken out the 2 kindergarten aides,
right,
or the 2 full-time aides that we had, work our way around it, that's not an area we can go to. So,
And that would raise the percentage we calculated to 2.8. At the FinCom meeting last week, they had voted their approval on a 2.5 increase, and we're trying to work cooperatively with them to try to hit that 2.5 target. So, I mean, that is actually the one line item that is, we don't really know. We don't know if the town is willing to finance a part-time position to take care of their needs, if they're willing to finance us exclusively on the town side and allow us, to, access this position. These are things that are just unknown. That seems to be the one line item that is still unclear. Gordon is the liaison for our board, but they have a very important FinCom meeting tonight because they're still trying to crunch the numbers for the town side. So that remains the question mark as far as this overall budget goes. If we delete it, if we subtract this 15,815, then we hit the target that they want us to hit. And I agree with John. I don't know if I personally am willing to cut an additional staff member on our side to facilitate this position. So it's unfortunate that we're not able to have direct communication with the FinCom tonight, but that is the question that's still up in the air.
Yeah, I think if we hadn't seen the change in the quality of full-day K program, which is paying for 2 aides, we'd probably look at it differently and say, yeah, there's certainly value in it, and perhaps it's greater than one of those aides, because it's about the cost of an aide that we're looking at. That's just not an option. Now, certainly, if the grant gets restored or partially restored, that would be a revenue that we would have, or a grant that we'd have access to, and that would change the picture.
What would be I didn't mean to interrupt, but I know you said that you don't see that as a likely scenario. What would be the timetable for the potential of that happening?
Well, and when I said likely scenario, I guess I should have said likely to be able to help us in our decision making. because I don't expect we're going to see that until late May or early June. I mean, it's going to happen. If it gets added back in this program, the history is that it's been cut and restored several times, or at least the continuation portion, which is what we have. This grant actually pays for people who have half-day kindergarten programs. You want to go to a full-day program, and it does two things. One, it gives you a one-time grant to buy those materials that you need to start a program, because now you need 2 sets of books, 2 sets of blocks, all those kinds of things. It pays for those one-time expenses. And then it pays for paraprofessionals in the classroom setting. The agreement is that you can't exceed 24 children to a certified teacher and a paraprofessional. And in years gone by, when times have gotten tough, they have stopped the expansion, but always continued to pay people who were already in the program. A couple of times they've stopped the program entirely, and it's come back. Whether it'll come back again or not, gosh, I don't know. But that's not going to happen. I don't believe that'll happen until we get through the House budget and the Senate budget, and it's going to be one of those last-minute kind of deals. I think it's just the way it's going to be.
That's a good question.
And we started very late this year, by the way. Normally the governor releases his budget in January. It was the beginning of March. I mean, between the extra time the new governor gets and the snowstorms and all of that, the state's really about 6 weeks behind what we used to see in the
May I ask a question about Mrs. Wright, please? Kim?
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to distract.
Was chasing me.
I was just curious, and I don't mean to put you on the spot, because I know you're not on the FinCom, but you are on the Board of Selectmen. Do you have any sense as to how the town is prioritizing this position right now? The
For the
media
budget?
tech position?
Oh, okay. No, I don't have a definitive answer for you. I can tell you that it was talked about because we were having such issues with the computer system at the town hall. We lost months of accounting, which was very difficult to get back. Charlie does what he can. He's not an expert. And so this was the least expensive alternative. Instead of hiring, a company to come in, this was the least expensive alternative. I know that obviously if you're in a deficit, you don't want to grow the business. You don't want to grow the budget. So I know that that would be one of the first things that's added back in. For me, anyway, personally, I can speak to it just because, again, there's a need there. And it's the most cost-effective way to fund that need.
Could it be, I know that the town has this big need for it, could the town finance it simply to have this individual serve on the town's side and not on our side?
Certainly we could. Again, it was a, we saw that you had a need as well, and I understand that teaching is really a priority and totally get that. And, is there a way to hire a part-time person? Certainly we could. So if it's something that we have to do, then we do. I know that for Charlie, it's his #1 thing on the budget. Just because a lot of his time is spent dealing with these. We have very old computers. We have a very old infrastructure. We definitely haven't been putting the money into that area at all, so.
No, I understand that.
Yeah.
It is an important position.
Yeah.
Our issue is we're trying to work cooperatively with the FinCom to hit that 2.5% target.
I really agree with giving you a number. I really agree. Personally, I agree with keeping you the same way we treat other departments. And I don't think that this department should be treated any differently. No other department got a percentage. And that's my personal feeling. I'm not speaking for the Board of Selectmen. I'm speaking for myself. Level service is level service.
I guess I'd like Christine to explain the jump in heating. That's quite dramatic.
The biggest factor is the gas. We looked at the past couple of years. I know that we have new boilers that we can put in, but we're just not seeing that savings right now. So I'm not sure if that's to come in the future, but I built this, the adjustments that were made to the utilities were based on the current usage and the price that we're paying and what's actually happening. And we've just had February, we had a huge bill. I thought it must have been a mistake. I couldn't imagine that was real. I said, so many bills. I went back and looked at it, and it wasn't a mistake. It was actually $21,000 for 1 month of gas. And that's astonishing.
Why?
Yeah, why?
Why?
Because gas is lower this year. than it was
So we're
last
going
year.
green too.
No.
It's in the stadium.
It's not?
No.
My oil is.
Oil's down, but gas is up, and last year it was the opposite. Last year, gas was down and oil was up. I know from my husband's business that heating our building with gas this year has been incredible. Yeah.
And that's why electricity has gone up also, is because of the cost of natural gas, because they're using natural gas to fuel the plants where they're creating electricity. So natural gas is in such high demand that the price of natural gas has gone up significantly.
So we don't heat with oil?
No, we heat with gas.
We have,
Why the boiling water? I guess I'm a little confused. Okay. I'm not a
It's okay, 'cause
HVAC
I
person.
don't, well, my husband does it.
we haven't used oil in this building for at least the last 14 years. I don't know about before that.
Good to know. So our usage is up for this year, and then for the price being up, I felt that I had to increase the budget for next year so that we wouldn't leave ourselves short.
And we've had a harsh winter. That doesn't help.
Right, that's a piece of it.
Question about 12, or line 1200 superintendent's office, and forgive me if I'm just not remembering correctly. That increase in that line item is due to,
Because Halifax's portion has increased for shared cost purposes. So that's your percentage for the K through 6, and that has gone up, and it was a $12,000 increase in the budget for that.
I'm just trying to find $15,000 we can squeeze out of this somewhere.
And maybe to put it in a little more context, if you were to look at your shared cost budget, the total overall increase in the superintendent's office was 2.59%, or 2.6%. The reason, as Christine said, that you have gone up a greater share has to, and we're talking about $8,000 overall, has to do with you have been losing students at the same time. Other districts are losing students as well, so you wind up with a bigger percentage.
And I looked at it a little bit because I was trying to figure out how was that possible. And we lost, I think, 2 students, and Clifton lost, I think, 4 students, and Kingston lost 50-something students at the elementary level.
Yep.
So because we lost less students, we get more of the pie.
But
By
fortunately,
lose, you mean going out because they're older and coming in, like the net loss?
Yeah.
Okay.
and you know,
We didn't actually lose them someplace.
I know, that's big as over.
you know, that's not a good phrase. We lost some students. It makes people nervous. I get it. But
Okay.
and if there's anything good about it, it's a relatively small number compared to so many of the other numbers. Yeah.
I'm still stunned at the heating cost.
Yeah.
That's what's killing us right
Well,
here.
if you-
$20,000.
If you look at, if you go back and look at the detail, and let's see.
I'm not doubting the necessity of it.
Well, I was going to say, this doesn't always help, but if you look at what we actually spent in 2013-14, we're talking about a $3,000 increase over what we actually spent in 13-14, and we've seen some big increases in the cost of gas and the cost of distribution of gas over the last 2 years. So it is just, frankly, the savings we had hoped to see with this new boiler just have not been as dramatic as we hoped.
I realize this isn't a lot of money, but if I can ask about line 4220, maintenance of buildings, it's gone up about 4,500 to 5,500.
Not just an estimate for next year, but we believe we'll actually need to get through next year with increase in some of our costs.
What specific costs are we referring to?
This account takes care of almost everything that it takes, anything that can go wrong in the building. If there's a problem with the fixtures in the bathroom, if there's a problem with the boiler, if there's a problem with air conditioning, if it's any of those things that can go wrong with the mechanics of making this building run, that's where it would go through.
So you're
Just the
projecting,
alarm system, all of those things.
so you'd like an extra $5,000 in there just to cover any unforeseen circumstances?
Well, if you look at the prior activity, for instance, in FY13, we spent 130,000. FY14 was down a little bit, and some of that was because we had some big ticket items that were taken care of by the town. All the work that was done on the alarm system and things like that. So I'm not anticipating that our costs are going to go down.
I guess I would describe it as a contingency in case something fails. We know things are going to break. This is not a new building. It's getting older. The cost of maintaining it is an issue. And we have a new head custodian who's being a little more aggressive, and we applaud him for that, and going in and taking care of some issues.
Can I ask a question about the line 185, the software? I'm just curious as to where those deductions came from. It's not itemized anywhere. Not that I can see at least. Must not be in the right spot.
I did not update the technology list for tonight, but I know one of the items was, I believe this Blackboard Connect, we were able to combine a couple of the services that we were receiving, some of the software that we were receiving, to get a slight savings.
Okay.
And there were a couple of others that they decided to program.
So there are a couple of things. Google Vault was, which is how we archive we have to archive our ingoing and outgoing email for 7 years, for administrators. Google Vault is now offering that for nothing to educational institutions. So that has happened. They talked about doing it. It's happened. Christine mentioned Blackboard Connect is that phone message system. It's the one that may be popular with some students because I call and say, we canceling school. Blackboard Engage is the web service that you see. It's our website. There was a merger. Blackboard, whoever owns Blackboard now owns Blackboard Connect. They were purchased out, and as a result, they made some price concessions. We just arbitrarily decided that we would reduce some of the software upgrades that we had in there. Software upgrades, we have been up until now a Windows XP place. In this past year, we've switched over to Windows 7. Mm-hmm. We're finding some software doesn't play well with Windows 7. Some of the software that students use. Our main systems like PowerSchool and work just fine. I mean, they were fine. We've had to replace some of that in sort of dribs and drabs that are used in classrooms. We're just gonna live with what we have. We'll make it work.
Mm-hmm. John, you mentioned before, I'm just looking at all sorts of places where there have been some increases. 9228, special ed psychological services. Did you say those were all contracted?
Yeah, that for the most part deals with things like OT, PT services, as well as testing that has to be done for students that are identified. Now, there's been a grant that we've had for many, many years, and it paid for an awful lot of those items. The grant has been sort of slowly not keeping up with the costs, and it's just really all come to a head.
So there's no wiggle room on that line item?
That is a line item that is in deficit this year. It's not going to go away.
I understand.
It's not going to go away. Wish it was.
John, 3310 transportation, $9,000 increase, is that contracted also?
This spring really going out to bid for next year. And what I did is I called all the surrounding towns and asked what kind of an increase they saw when they went out to bid for their new contract. And so I used it as a factor for that, an estimate.
There's just not a lot of wiggle room here.
No, there isn't. So, we're talking about the software. I've actually come across my notes as to exactly what we took off. It was Google Vault for $742. Altaris is the software that allows us to do desktop remote work. We are doing it in a different manner. We're able we were able to go through and do a careful hit count of all the computers that we have, and it's a sort of a seat license kind of thing. So we've eliminated some computers in the building. It turns out that we don't need the management software on all of them. We had warranties for $300 on some servers. We don't think it's worth it anymore just because they're really quite old. It's not worth paying the warranty fee on it. And again, upgrades for $700. That's just, we're going to have to just work around some items. That was it. Yeah, there's not much left. I mean, we have gone through and nickel and dime this, and that's fine. We've gone back to level funded library books. We're going to stretch out the adoption of science curriculum materials. But this is not the first time that we've been in this position of looking to try to level fund and level service the budget. We're doing that, as the town has been doing that for a number of years now. There's not much else to look at. It really isn't.
I commend the job you and Christine have done since the first proposed budget to try to get this as tight as possible.
Well, that's kind, but you should know that, Kane and Claudia,
Of course,
just
didn't mean to
in this.
disrespect anyone else.
Steve Bellow has gone through and said, well, what can I live without? What can we make changes to? That's gotten us where we are. So really, the next steps, and I think really do have to do with personnel.
All right, Christine, you adjusted utilities for what you think we're actually going to spend next year.
Correct.
That doesn't take into account the green communities projects.
Correct, it doesn't.
I'm still a little leery of adjusting the utilities. I'm concerned if we adjust them.
For the potential savings?
For the potential savings. I'm looking at it as we expected to see some kind of savings in gas with the new boiler, and we're not seeing it. So I guess I'm a little leery of committing to lowering those costs without actually seeing the savings before we do it. Is there the potential of some savings there? I think there is, but
The studies say there is a potential for savings, yes.
How much, I mean, I know this is a very difficult question to answer, but is there some sort of price range, possible cost savings? We're talking about a couple of $1,000, $10,000?
It was more than, I don't recall do you recall the exact number for the electric savings?
Me?
Yeah, do you?
I thought Charlie said it could be somewhere around 12,000.
12,000 for
Between
the full
two,
year.
between the lights and the heating.
the thermostat.
Right, and again, the gas prices are strictly the market. It's not necessarily your new furnace. It's really what happened with the gas market. So we couldn't predict that. So you don't know what's going to happen with electricity either. So, I mean, that's what the potential savings could be, if all goes well with the rates.
And of course, we've seen the cost of electricity go up. If you're a National Grid customer, 42%.
Which we are?
Well, we are sort of. We actually, Charlie buys electricity for us through a fixed price contract. But we've seen, if you're a national, but just because we bought it right last year doesn't mean it's not going to catch up with us next time the contract comes to renew. And only about 50% of the cost of electricity has to do with generation. The other part has to do with distribution, the supply side. And you look at your bill at home, and you will see that part is going up as well. So it's wonderful that we may see some savings. And I think there's probably going to be some savings. We all know if we make it a more efficient light bulb, we're going to use less kilowatts. What the cost of electricity is going to be delivered to the door, not exactly sure. And really, that gas number is not exactly sure. As Kim points out, gas can go up and down, And we also deal with the supply side. And the gas company doesn't deliver it to our building for nothing. And if you read the papers, there's an awful lot of talk about the ultimate solution for the cost of natural gas is increased pipeline capacity. I mean, if we were in Western New York, gas would be very inexpensive. In fact, they're looking for ways to store it in old salt mines and other places because there's a surplus of it. We can't get it here. The pipelines are at capacity, so they're talking about building pipelines. But that is not going to be done for nothing. It's going to be expensive, and it's going to be part of our gas bill. I personally think central heating is a pretty nifty idea, and so I have gas at my house. I kind of want to be able to have that heat come on all the time. I'll pay a little more for it. That's okay. But in terms of trying to build a budget on those savings, I'm not sure that's really going to happen. I don't know. We can tell you how many therms we think we'll use. We can tell you how many kilowatts we think we're going to use. It's pretty fixed. It's the other part of the equation. What do we pay for? It's not as fixed.
I mean, I think all this speaks to one of the challenges that this board faces when asked to level fund a budget. Level funding doesn't necessarily mean level service because you have these fixed costs that do fluctuate, that do increase.
I don't think we were asked to level fund. We were asked to level service.
Well, I mean, I'm sorry, I meant to say level service. Because we do have fixed costs and it poses a challenge. I know that other departments are also facing the same thing, but not every other department has to provide for energy costs as part of their budget. We do. I mean, these type of fixed costs we can't really control. And certainly, as everyone knows, a lot of most of the sped costs, most of the bulk costs are beyond our control. And state mandated to provide these finances. Again, I want to commend everybody who's involved in this process for getting our budget so close to what the FinCom was asking. That was no easy trick.
Let's hope they appreciate us.
Well, I hope so. I mean, we're trying to work. Several of us have been attending FinCom meetings over the past couple of months, trying very hard to work collaboratively, with the FinCom to come up with a consensus prior to town meeting, so we don't have to debate, our overall budget on town meeting floor. Because I don't think that serves everybody. We want to make sure that we're all on the same page. I think that kind of government is the most efficient, personally. Thank you all again. Chairman, what are your thoughts about voting on this tonight?
I would like to hold off, and that is going to be a committee decision. My personal preference would be to hold off and take some time to absorb this. Maybe see if John and Christine will work with Charlie and see if they could come up with a number or something for the utilities that they're comfortable maybe reducing, and maybe we could add the media person back in. I'm not sure. I know I'm uncomfortable making those cuts.
That would be kind of a big drop in utility costs.
Well, from what Charlie has said all along and from what I remember of the green communities, for the electrical piece, when the study was done, which was a while ago, the potential savings was, I think, of maybe $23,000. And what Charlie had said the last time he was here was maybe not cut the whole thing, maybe cut, a portion of it. I guess my concern would be that if we made the cut and we don't realize those savings, we're going to be cutting something else within the budget at the end of the year too. And that's what I'm worried about. I mean, we've gotten this budget pretty tight. I would hate to see us have to come back and do without a person in the building to fund the electricity. And that's part of my concern here. I want to be as fiscally responsible with this budget as possible, while still trying to work with the Finance Committee and and Charlie's request for that IT person, because I know he really feels strongly about it. So I'm trying to have, I guess, the best of all worlds. And I'm not sure it's possible, but I'd at least like the week to try. I think if we wait till next Monday to vote a budget and get have John and Christine work with Charlie a little bit, maybe we could come to something that might please us all. I don't know. If we vote a budget next Monday, it's still within the time frame before the town goes to print with the warrant. So it's not like we're up against that time frame. Traditionally, the school committee has voted their budget in April, so it's not like we're going against anything. So, I mean, if everybody's comfortable with this the way it is.
May I ask a question of you, Ms. Burke?
Sure.
And forgive my ignorance, this is a procedural question. If Charlie gives some indication that he's confident that there will be some savings in the green initiative, is there a way, I know we can't do line item transfers between the school department and the town during the budget, okay? But is there a way that we could keep this audiovisual piece in the budget if Charlie would allow us to take these savings out of this, okay? And if it's not realized, it's kind of like, it's almost like gambling in a way, okay? That he'll put it in, and if we receive substantial savings over and above our budget, that we would somehow put that money, give that money back to the town? I mean, I don't know what the procedure would be for doing that.
Well, the nice thing is, you could vote a budget today, or you could vote it next Monday, no problem. But the nice thing is, we will probably have a printout at town meeting with all new budgets anyway, regardless of what's printed in the warrant on April 7th, because everything is still so fluid that, you know, we expect to have a salmon-colored copy of the budget passed out at town meeting. And so if you decide to vote a separate budget number, you know, a week before that, then we would just amend that amount and print it out, and the people would have noticed at town meeting. I understand what you're saying, like you could vote the number with it in, or you could just vote the utilities with it in and keep it open, because we can't really hire anybody until July 1st anyway. So maybe by July 1st you'd have, I believe that it's about $154,000 worth of work that's going to happen on April vacation to make this a green. Oh, I thought it was April vacation. Oh, okay.
Everybody together and everything. The last thing I heard from Charlie, it was going to happen in the summer.
Okay, I hadn't gotten that update. So the summer.
So this is what making me kind of.
Yeah, I mean, I know that you want to be able to move the number for the utilities, but again, sort of like what John and I were speaking about earlier, is that because the gas market's so crazy and the electricity market's so crazy that, you know, I mean, I would love to have you change that, but I'd almost rather you not. I don't know.
And that's where I am.
I don't know.
I'm just, but I'm so weary of not
and then
getting there at the end.
maybe see that maybe something happens that you may have, you know, maybe we don't hire this person until August 1st or September 1st, and then maybe there's something within the budget that allows you to share that position again. Maybe we do see a potential of utilities, or maybe something else happens, that maybe you have not the same amount of people that go to vocational. Like maybe that would be nice, and then perhaps we could do a line item transfer, because that's a separate line technically, that maybe we could do a line item transfer later on in the year. So there is still a little flexibility with that. But yeah, so don't worry about if you vote it today or you vote it next Monday. Next Monday it'll still go to print, whatever you vote. And again, you have until, as long as you have quorum when you post your meeting, like we have like the finance committee sometimes is voting things that morning, you know, and changing the sheet just to kind of balance the budget at the last minute. It happens really for every year for the last, I think, 7 years. We've sat in somebody's kitchen trying to figure it out. Yeah.
Personally, I'd like to fund the audio-visual position.
Sure.
But not at the expense of an existing staff
Sure.
member.
Yeah.
That's why I'm trying to think of some creative solution where we can
Yeah.
maybe roll the dice that we're going to see some savings in utility, and
Yeah.
if If we do, great. If not, is there an alternative to not cutting someone, not
Right.
cutting a staff person? I mean, there are a lot of unknowns here.
And certainly Charlie and I, because I understand the importance of it, we appreciate that you're willing to do that. But again, there's no guarantee on our side that we're going to be able to keep it in. I mean, we certainly have been trying to get that deficit down. Last we checked on Friday, I think we were somewhere around, last Monday we were somewhere around 45, and then we had an increase of about 40,000 on veterans benefits, which pushed us back up to an $85,000 deficit. We had some movement at the Silver Lake budget, which would help, and then this certainly will help. So there's still that, kind of crazy. And then we hope to have some sort of budget, the House budget sometime in April vacation week, right? Like the third week in April, maybe, first. Yeah, so hopefully, that will give us more of an idea. So again, I appreciate that you're looking and trying to fit it in, and we are too. So we might come to you and say we couldn't do it either,
Just from your own personal opinion, I know you're not a member of this committee, but
Yeah.
if you had a say in this, would you fund this audiovisual line now?
That's a tough one. Only because I know you're trying to get to a number, but I wouldn't want you to sacrifice a position within your budget for that, because I think the need is more on our side than it is on yours. I wasn't part of the discussion with Charlie and you, John, about how badly your need is here. I think there certainly is a need, but there's a desperate need on our side of the street. So I totally understand why you're not doing that. I would hate for you to lose an aide if it meant that and get a media tech, the tech person. So, yeah, I would kind of hold off. Yeah, no, I would sort of hold off, I guess. Yeah.
Can I ask, well, not too off, are we also submitting a technology article for the warrant?
Yes. You want to talk about that first?
We already have submitted the technology article.
Did we vote on that?
No.
Or is
We
that,
haven't voted it, but it was what was talked about at a school committee meeting.
is that typically something that we don't vote on as a committee?
We vote on it, usually vote the capital and the budget together.
Yeah.
It's typically what we've done.
Isn't that capital though?
That is capital.
So
Doesn't-
I guess I'm a little confused. If it's already been submitted and we haven't voted, then why? What's up with that?
The timeline is such that we needed a placeholder. And this came as a result of the meeting we had here, and I've forgotten when, we talked about.
I remember talking about it. I just
Derek had
didn't.
submitted some items that didn't quite match up with what we had a need for and how we thought it would fall out. So I submitted to Charlie back in March the items we talked about, which is 2 network switches, 1 drive array storage unit, 2 printers, which is part of the replacement cycle, and then air conditioning for the head end room. And all of that comes to $22,200. And those items were then taken out of the budget when we went to version 2. It was talked about, those came out and were going to be submitted as a separate order. So those have been submitted, and at some point in time, the committee needs to take a position and see if they'll support it or whether they want it withdrawn.
Can you amend it as a committee?
Since we
Yeah.
haven't voted it, we can do whatever we
Do
want with it.
Okay.
I don't know what the timeline is on the town in terms of how long they have for it.
When does the warrant go to print? When does the warrant actually go to print?
The warrant will go to print on the first week in April. Capital planning met tonight. I couldn't be there. I had to go to a wake, but I know that they were meeting with, they were trying to prioritize what we had. We would love to sit down at the capital planning with members of the school committee to talk about their article at some point. I think we're meeting next Monday. But as John said, the article will be printed. The article can be amended at town meeting. But the money portion, though, would have to be set just because we don't have a lot of free cash left. We're trying to do a couple of things this year. So.
And the article could also be passed over, even if it's printed, it could be
Yeah, it
passed
should
over.
be passed over, and people pass over articles all the time. Yeah. capital items. We definitely have seen department heads at the last minute when we've run out of money say, I'll hold off this year, I'll get up and I'll just pass over it. But we do try to go into the print balanced, but then some things sort of change, yeah.
So do we want to talk about the capital piece right now and see if we can get something together and voted on to take to capital planning so that somebody can meet with them next Monday? Because they're going to meet before we meet because they meet at 6 o'clock.
Do you think it might be prudent to wait until we have all 5 members of the committee, all 5 members of the committee here, since Derek has taken an active role in this process?
And if you can't do it this Monday, we can.
Yeah, I was saying, we're meeting
Yeah,
again
yeah.
next Monday, so
Yeah.
are you comfortable with that?
Yeah, I just didn't see any of it going on here, so I didn't know where that was
That's a
at.
very valid point.
All right, so how about if we put the capital and regular budget for a vote on next week's agenda?
That sounds good.
I think that could happen.
Okay. Any other questions, comments about the 15-16 budget? Seeing none? Halifax Elementary Roof Project.
So the roof project has sort of come back.
I don't think it ever left.
It's come back quicker than I thought it was going to. So here's the latest thinking on the roof project. And I think people understand we have a roof that seems to come to the end of its useful life and we need to make plans. We had talked about doing a accelerated roof repair project. That turns out that in order to do that, you need a lot more detail and you also need access to funding pretty quickly, which were two things that we really didn't have. So in talking to Charlie and Mrs. Roy a week ago, they asked if the schools could work with them to put together it's called a statement of interest. A statement of interest that would go to the Mass School Building Authority. It is designed to not really need a lot of outside help if you've got some skills internally to describe the problem, in this case a roof that's old, the solution, which is to replace it, and sort of a sense of why you believe that it's the case, and if all of it makes sense, and the board of MSBA puts it on their priority list, they'll notify us, and then we have roughly 270 days to put together detailed information, a source of funding, get town meeting votes, do those kinds of things. So that's the track we're on. I hope to come back to you next Monday at our next school committee meeting and get you to vote their wording that just says that you're committed to try to move forward with this to see if the state will fund it, and if the state funds it, then to use your best efforts, my words, to bring this to town meeting and try to get it funded. Selectmen will need to do the same thing, and then we'll go from there.
John, what's the current MSBA reimbursement percentage on these kind of projects?
I don't know what it's going to be. It's running between 35 and 45%.
That's quite a drop.
Gone are the days.
It's a 90% reimbursement
Yeah,
rate
gone-
at
gone are
both
the
middle
days-
school and high school.
Well,
Old days.
yeah.
Gone are the days where you went to the law and said, oh, there's my name, I'm at Halifax, I get X percent. I mean, Silver Lake, when it built the high school and middle school, we got 72%.
I knew it was.
That was a lot of money. I mean, that was a lot of money. Today, we'd be pretty happy if we got 50%. And even at 50%, there are a number of hoops you jump through to get there. So it's just a sign of the times. But having said that, a third of the cost of roofing this building looks pretty good when you consider when we did the library, it was 100% of the cost of the roof for the library had to come from the town. So, if they'll help support it, that'll be great.
I know it's premature, but do we have any idea what the overall cost, assuming 0% from the state?
I wouldn't even hazard a guess.
I knew it was premature, I was just curious.
Millions? Hundreds of thousands?
Hundreds of thousands.
Okay, so we're...
Hundreds of thousands.
Okay, so we're not
I mean,
looking at millions. Okay,
No,
that's
I
good.
think
Well, I don't know.
hundreds of
Look on
thousands.
the sunny side of the street.
And I think the question will be on that roof, on the flat roof over there, given the age of it, and we are now a green community that adopted the energy stretch code. what will that mean in terms of roof insulation and applicable building codes today? And that's all to be worked out. So there are a lot of twists and turns here to get us there. When we get all done, by the way, we'll have a roof that you and I are not going to worry about replacing, because it's going to be another 20, 25 years before it goes back up again.
Is that a guarantee I won't be sitting here?
If God bless you,
You'll be
still
sitting
here after 35 years in the school
We'll be sitting
committee.
across the street somewhere.
Yeah, about 35 years in the school committee, and I think that you're toast. Yeah.
Do you know if we're getting an opportunity to put some extra insulation up there at the same time? Is that
You
part
get an
of it?
opportunity to do anything you like.
Yeah, I think we should look at maybe the solar panels. I mean, we should really think of, like, if we're gonna do it, maybe there's an opportunity to even save more in power, and, it's definitely, if we're gonna do it, we should really think about different options.
Yeah, I was talking about insulation as well.
Oh, sure, as, Mr.
There are companies that will do it for free, and they just give you a knock off your bill.
Yeah.
And being that we're not open at night generally, it's a better deal for a building like this.
Well, this back side of the roof sees the sun most of the day. Yeah. So,
It wouldn't be unsightly because it's in the back.
Yeah. Yeah, so the historical district won't really,
Can I get that in writing?
no.
All right, but the first step in this process is, I guess, from what I've seen, is for the school committee and the Board of Selectmen to vote very specific language around a
Correct.
statement of interest. And those need to be submitted with and having seen what the stuff you have to come up with.
And I have until a week from Friday to get it done.
Yes, I believe April 10th is the deadline.
Yeah.
So I would appreciate it if we make that deadline.
Yeah, I think it'd be a pretty good idea too.
Okay, thanks. So we're going to put a statement of interest vote on the next agenda? Okay. The only other thing I have on the agenda is an executive session for a discussion of the Halifax teacher contract negotiations. So I would like a motion to go into executive session for a discussion and to return to open session for a vote. Is there a second? Roll call. Summer. Bob.
I'm sorry. I thought we were just going
Can we get a
around
brief
the bend.
recess thrown in with that?
Yes, we can.
Okay.
So, all right. So 5 minutes, and then we'll come back for an executive session discussion.
Claudia, is there?
Yeah, we need a room.
We could go to.
The camera, we don't want to have him break down.
Do you want to use the conference room?
Put
Or
some-
do you want to just use Bill Collins' office?
Think we could use.
You're gonna need him any longer?
Yes.
We're gonna come
because
back and
we're
go.
gonna come back and vote,
It's
maybe,
gotta be a
hopefully.
short, it's gotta be a short session.
Because we're
It's not
going
gonna
to
take
executive
very
session, then we have
I think
to
it's
vote.
Bill
Yeah, I think Bill
And
Collins,
public
I think
session.
Bill Collins is off.
Take adjournment now.
Thank you.
That's right.
Okay, and we're back. Mr. Slager?
We don't need to make a motion to go back into
Nope.
open session. All right, the business before us now regards the Halifax Teachers Association proposed contract. As many folks know, that we have worked very hard with the Teachers Association over the past year to come to an agreement on a new 3-year contract. We have reached a tentative agreement. That was done at our last negotiating committee. The Halifax Teachers Association has ratified it, so the next step is for the school committee in open session to take a vote on whether to approve the tentative agreement. I would like to just set the boundaries as to what that agreement entails. And this was after painstaking negotiation over the course of the past year. We have tentatively agreed to a 3-year contract that involves some splits among different steps involved in teacher salaries. In 2015, teachers with steps 1 through 11 will receive a 1% increase if agreed upon by the committee. Anyone over steps 12 and S through 4 will get a 1.75 increase in the first year. In 2016, the step increase is exactly the same as it is this year. The split is exactly the same. 1% for steps 1 through 11, and 1.75% for steps from steps 12 through S4. And in 2017, all the steps will receive a 1.5% increase. This represents, when you break down the math, essentially a 1.5% increase over the next 3 years, a total of a 4.5% increase during that time.
The same math.
The same math. Again, this was a very difficult negotiation. We were trying to look at what was in the best interest of the town, what was in the best interest of the school, what was in the best interest of the teachers. By law, Casey and I are compelled to vote yes for this because we made a tentative agreement during the negotiations. It is my understanding that we need 3 affirmative votes to ratify this because of the absence of one of our members.
Majority of those present and voting.
Yes. Kim Roy is a member, Kim is a voting member of the committee as a representative of the Board of Selectmen. So Kim, do you mind joining us?
Sure. Thank you, Cameron.
I also wanted to mention we had a few tentative agreements that were basically more clerical than anything else. Some changes in language to the existing contract, just to clear confusion. There was really no debate about this on either side. I know some of this might sound a little out of context if you don't have the entire contract in front of you, but in Article 3, there's a non-discrimination clause. We've added sexual orientation to that. That was mutually agreed by both parties. In the evaluation process, we both agreed to, upon some slight changes in the language of that particular item. In the educator value language, there were some slight changes. Again, without going through it in depth, it was a relatively minor change that had very little debate between both sides. In Article 3, we added gender identity, and in Article 22 of the existing contract under professional leave, we deleted the second paragraph, which really wasn't pertinent anymore due to other aspects of the contract. It really was just language that served no purpose, and there really wasn't much debate between the school negotiating team and the Halifax Teachers Association. So that said, I'd like to make a motion for the school committee to vote to approve the tentative agreement that we have reached with the Halifax Teachers Association. All in favor, say aye.
You need a second.
Oh, I'm sorry. Didn't mean to jump the gun.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye, no. No.
For the record, the contract has been approved by the school committee by a vote of 4 to 1. And I want to thank everybody involved in this process. It's been very arduous and difficult, and I'm very pleased that we've reached an agreement that was done cooperatively between the school committee and the union. In these difficult economic times, it is very difficult to come to such agreements, and I'm pleased that the school committee acted, I felt, in a very responsible fashion, and the Halifax Teachers Association represented their interests well, and I'm very pleased that we've reached this agreement, and we won't have to cross this bridge again for another 3 years.
Much appreciated, thank you.
And I will let Fred know that the school committee voted it, and we can let the mediator know that we are no longer in need of his services, which is a very happy thing to say.
Yes.
All right. Seeing nothing else on the agenda, except for the dates to remember, is April 6th is our next school committee meeting, which is next Monday night. Is there a motion to adjourn?
And if I could,
Oh, yeah.
I would just point out, would just mention, that we haven't had any snow days, and I know Halifax had voted to have school on Good Friday, but if you have children who are in the secondary system, the Silver Lake had voted to perhaps.
No, I think that's wrong, John. I think we voted against it.
You voted against it.
Yes,
You
we
voted
did.
to not have school on Good Friday. You win. You're not having school on Good Friday.
I told you we'd be safe.
You were right.
All
You were
right.
right.
So you made a motion to adjourn?
I need a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you.